Admiral Tux Brightwing lounged in his command chair aboard the Galactic patrol vessel Starshine Guardian, his tentacles lazily draped over the armrests as he watched the endless void of space through the ship's panoramic view screen. Another boring patrol in the outer sectors, another day of absolutely nothing happening. He clicked his beak in mild annoyance, wondering why the Council insisted on maintaining these patrols when nothing interesting had happened in this sector for the past 300 cycles. Admiral, Sir Lieutenant Pip Sparklefluff's voice chirped through the bridge's comm system, her high-pitched tone making Brightwing wince. "We're picking up some sort of transmission. It's strange." "Strange how?" Lieutenant Brightwing drawled, not bothering to shift his position. "Is it another space whale's mating call? Because I told you last time we don't need to investigate those." "No, sir. It's structured, but primitive. Very primitive. Almost like radio waves, sir." That got Brightwing's attention. He sat up straighter, his cream-colored feathers ruffling slightly. "Radio waves? In this sector? Show me." The main screen flickered to life with a visual representation of the signal. Brightwing squinted at it, his head tilting to one side. Well, what do we have here? "It appears to be coming from a small colony on the third planet of the RX-789 system," Pip reported, her antennae twitching with excitement. "The signal keeps repeating SOS, under attack. Please help." Brightwing let out a laugh that sounded more like a squawk. "SOS? Radio waves? Oh, this is precious. Someone's actually still using radio waves for distress signals. What's next? Smoke signals." The bridge crew joined in his laughter, their various appendages shaking with mirth. Only Lieutenant Pip remained serious, her compound eyes reflecting the signal's pattern. "Sir," she ventured, "shouldn't we at least investigate? The Galactic Code clearly states." Yes. All distress signals must be investigated." Brightwing waved a tentacle dismissively. "But come on, Lieutenant. Anyone still using radio waves can't possibly be dealing with anything serious. Probably some primitive species that crashed their combustion engine spacecraft or something equally ridiculous." He paused for dramatic effect, then added with a smirk, "Though I suppose we should check it out. If nothing else, it'll give us something to laugh about at the next Admiral's gathering." Setting course for RX-789, "Sir, the navigation officer, Commander Zip Stardenser, announced. At current speed, we'll arrive in approximately 2 hours." "Take your time." Commander Brightwing yawned, settling back into his chair. "It's not like they're going anywhere, probably still trying to figure out how to make fire or invent the wheel." As the Starshine Guardian cruised through space at a leisurely pace, Brightwing entertained himself by imagining what sort of primitive creatures they might find. Perhaps they'd be using mechanical computers or still burning fossil fuels. The thought made him chuckle. Sir Pip's voice interrupted his musings again, this time with a note of concern. "The signal, it's changed." "Oh? Are they using Morse code now?" Brightwing quipped, earning another round of laughter from the bridge crew. "No, sir. It stopped. But before it did, they transmitted one final message." "Well?" "Don't keep us in suspense, Lieutenant. What did our primitive friends say?" Pip's antennae drooped slightly as she read the message: "Pirates attacking. Colony defenses breached. Transmitting coordinates to Earth Fleet Command. If anyone receives this, please relay to nearest human military installation." "Humans," Brightwing repeated, rolling the unfamiliar word around in his beak. "Never heard of them. Probably some backwater species that thinks they're important. Well, I suppose we should increase our speed a little. Wouldn't want to miss all the excitement of rescuing them from whatever passes for pirates in their primitive understanding." Little did Admiral Tux Brightwing know, but his dismissive attitude toward this seemingly primitive distress signal would soon prove to be the biggest mistake of his career. As the Starshine Guardian made its way toward RX-789, events were already in motion that would forever change his understanding of the galaxy and its inhabitants. The Starshine Guardian dropped out of faster-than-light travel with all the grace of a ballet dancer, its sleek hull gleaming in the light of RX-789's sun. Admiral Brightwing was about to make another witty comment about primitive civilizations when his jaw dropped at the scene before him. A massive pirate vessel, the notorious Black Nebula, hung in orbit above the small colony world. Its distinctive purple-black hull bristled with weapon ports, and several smaller craft zipped between it and the surface. But what really caught Brightwing's attention was the colony itself, or rather, what remained of it. "By the Council's sacred tentacles," Commander Zip whispered. "Those are Mark 7 plasma cannons they're using." "Impossible," Brightwing scoffed, though his feathers were starting to stand on end. No self-respecting pirate would waste high-grade weapons on a radio-using civilization. This must be some sort of elaborate prank. Sir Lieutenant Pip's voice cracked with urgency. "The Black Nebula is hailing us." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the scarred face of Captain Rex Bloodstar, one of the most notorious pirates in the sector. His cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Brightwing. "Well, if it isn't the Galactic Patrol," Bloodstar sneered. "Come to watch the show? These humans have some interesting technology. Primitive in some ways, yes," but he paused to glance at a readout. "Their mineral extraction techniques are fascinating. Worth a fortune on the black market." Brightwing puffed up his chest, trying to maintain his dignity. "This is a protected sector, Bloodstar, by council law." "Protected?" Bloodstar burst out laughing. "They're using radio waves. They barely qualify as a spacefaring species. Besides, we're almost done here. Just a few more resources to extract, a few more colonists to process." A sudden alert blared through both ships. Lieutenant Pip's antennae shot straight up. Multiple spatial distortions detected. Massive energy signatures. "Oh please," Bloodstar rolled his eye. "If these humans called for help, it'll take days for their primitive ships to." The space behind the Black Nebula erupted in a series of perfectly calculated tiers in reality. Brightwing counted 1, 5, 10, 20 ships emerging. Their design was unlike anything he'd ever seen, sleek, angular, and radiating power that made his sensors scream in protest. "Status report," Bloodstar barked at someone off-screen. They just bypassed our shields completely." "How did they? That's not possible. Their targeting systems are locked onto every critical system simultaneously." Brightwing watched in fascination as a transmission cut through every frequency, overriding both ships' communication systems. A human face appeared dark-skinned, silver-haired, with eyes that seemed to bore right through the screen. "This is Admiral Jasmine Blackwood of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have attacked a human colony, murdered our citizens, and stolen our resources. Your ships are surrounded, your weapons are targeted, and your shields are irrelevant. You have 30 seconds to power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Any hostile action will result in immediate destruction." The voice was calm, almost bored, as if dealing with pirates was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. "Now see here," Bloodstar sputtered, "you can't just..." A precise beam of energy lanced out from the smallest human vessel, cutting off the Black Nebula's main weapon array with surgical precision. 20 seconds, Admiral Blackwood continued, checking her nails. Brightwing watched in stunned silence as the mighty Black Nebula powered down, its crew clearly more interested in survival than fighting what had appeared from nowhere like vengeful gods of space. "Lieutenant Pip," Brightwing said quietly, "please tell me you're recording all of this." "Yes, sir. Including the part where we ignored their distress signal and made fun of their technology. Should I edit that out of the official report?" "No," Brightwing sighed, watching as human boarding craft, barely larger than shuttles, carved through the Black Nebula's hull like it was made of paper. "No, I believe this will be an important lesson for future patrol commanders. Never judge a species by their choice of communication technology." As if hearing his words, Admiral Blackwood's gaze shifted to the Starshine Guardian. "Ah, yes. The Galactic Patrol vessel that received our distress signal. We'll be having a conversation about response protocols very soon. I hope you enjoy bureaucratic meetings, Admiral Brightwing. There will be many in your future." Brightwing slumped in his chair, his earlier sarcasm forgotten as he watched the humans efficiently dismantle one of the most dangerous pirate operations in the sector. "Commander Zip," he said weakly, "please remind me to never, ever make assumptions about primitive species again?" "Yes, Sir Zip replied, equally subdued. "Though I don't think any of us will need reminding after this. The next few minutes aboard the Black Nebula were pure chaos." Captain Rex Bloodstar's cybernetic eye was spinning so fast it looked ready to launch from his skull as he barked increasingly desperate orders at his crew. "Get those backup generators online. Reroute power to the emergency drives. Someone tell me how they cut through our shields like they weren't even there." Meanwhile, on the Starshine Guardian's bridge, Admiral Brightwing watched the unfolding scene with a mix of horror and fascination. The human ships moved with impossible precision, their formation shifting like a perfectly choreographed dance of destruction. "Sir." "Hey," Lieutenant Pip's voice quavered slightly. "I've analyzed their weapon systems. They're not using standard plasma tech or quantum cascades. This is something entirely different. The energy signatures suggest they're somehow, well, sir, they appear to be manipulating the fundamental forces of reality itself." Commander Zip let out a strangled laugh. "Oh, that's just wonderful. The radio wave-using primitives are casually breaking physics. What's next? Are they going to pull a sun out of their pockets?" As if on cue, one of the human vessels released what appeared to be a miniature star from its rear bay, a perfectly controlled fusion reaction that it was using for propulsion. Zip slowly sank into his chair, muttering something about retiring to become a space cabbage farmer. The Black Nebula's crew was faring even worse. Their internal communications, now being broadcast on all frequencies thanks to the humans' electronic warfare suite, painted a picture of escalating panic. "The boarding teams are through the outer hull." "How?" "We just reinforced those with ultra-dense alloys. They're using some kind of handheld matter disruptors. Those don't exist. They can't exist. Tell that to the holes they're cutting through our ship." A new voice cut through the chaos, calm, collected, and terrifyingly professional. "Black Nebula security teams, this is Human Marine Commander Sandra Martinez. Your ship's structural integrity has been compromised in 17 locations. Your weapons are disabled. Your engine core is under our control. And just to be clear." There was a pause, followed by the sound of something heavy being set down. "That ticking you hear is not a bomb. It's just my coffee maker. I find a good cup of coffee makes prisoner processing so much more civilized." The panic in the pirate ranks reached new heights. They brought coffee makers to a ship invasion. "What's coffee?" "Some kind of human chemical weapon. I heard it makes them stronger. I heard they can't even start their days without it. We're doomed." Admiral Brightwing watched as the human boarding teams, their armor a sleek black that seemed to absorb light itself, methodically worked their way through the Black Nebula. Their movements were precise, efficient, and somehow both professional and casual at the same time. "Lieutenant Pip," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "please tell me that coffee maker isn't actually a weapon." Pip ran a quick scan. "It appears to be exactly what they said it is, sir. A device for preparing a caffeinated beverage. Though the power output is surprisingly high for such a simple appliance." On the main screen, they watched as Admiral Blackwood coordinated the entire operation while apparently filling out paperwork. She glanced up occasionally to issue new orders or approve tactical decisions, all with the air of someone dealing with a minor administrative task. "Oh, and Admiral Brightwing," she called out, making him jump in his chair. "Your ship's data core has been quite educational. I particularly enjoyed the part where you compared our technology to smoke signals. Our diplomatic team has prepared a comprehensive response to that assessment. They've even included visual aids and a PowerPoint presentation. I believe the title is Why Assumptions Make You Look Like an Idiot, a Guide for Galactic Patrol Officers." In the background, Commander Martinez could be heard offering freshly brewed coffee to the captured pirates. "Cream? Sugar? No need to look so terrified. If we wanted you dead, we wouldn't have bothered with the boarding teams. Or the coffee. Speaking of which, Captain Bloodstar, would you prefer Colombian or Ethiopian blend?" Bloodstar, his earlier bravado completely evaporated, could only stare in confusion at the steaming cup being offered to him. His cybernetic eye had finally stopped spinning, having apparently given up on making sense of the situation entirely. "I don't understand," he muttered, accepting the cup with shaking hands. "You have technology that makes our best ships look like children's toys. You can ignore our shields, cut through our hulls, and apparently violate several laws of physics. And you're serving us coffee." "Of course," Martinez replied cheerfully. "Just because we're apprehending space pirates doesn't mean we can't be civilized about it. Besides, you look like you could use the caffeine. Prison processing takes a while, and we have a lot to discuss about your choice of targets." Back on the Starshine Guardian, Admiral Brightwing was having his own existential crisis. "Lieutenant Pip, when we get back to headquarters, remind me to update the Galactic Patrol Manual. I believe we need a new section titled Why You Should Answer Every Distress Call, even if it comes by carrier pigeon." "Already drafting it," Sir Pip replied, her antennae twitching with barely suppressed amusement. "Should I include the coffee maker incident as an appendix?" "Include everything." Brightwing sighed, watching as human ships began setting up a perimeter around the colony, their advanced technology humming with barely restrained power. Every single embarrassing detail. Future patrol officers need to understand that appearances can be deceiving, and that sometimes the most dangerous species in the galaxy might just invite you for a hot beverage while they systematically dismantle your ship. Just as Admiral Brightwing thought the situation couldn't get any more surreal, space itself seemed to hiccup. The sensors on both the Starshine Guardian and the captured Black Nebula lit up like festival displays as hundreds of spatial distortions bloomed across the system. "Oh, come on," Commander Zip groaned. "How many ships do they need to arrest one pirate crew?" The answer, apparently, was all of them. Ships of every size and configuration emerged from the tiers in spacetime, from nimble corvettes to behemoths that made Brightwing's flagship look like a space dingy. Each vessel bore the markings of Earth Defense Fleet, along with names that seemed deliberately designed to unsettle their enemies, inevitable consequence diplomatic solution terms and conditions, and most worryingly, customer service representative. "Sir." Lieutenant Pip reported, her voice filled with awe. "I'm detecting, well, everything. Quantum manipulation drives, dark matter reactors, gravity lenses, and at least 6 types of technology I can't even begin to classify. And they're all running on what appears to be, sir. You're not going to believe this." "Try me, Lieutenant." "I think I'm beyond surprise at this point. They're powered by something called a Starbucks reactor. It appears to be a highly advanced system that converts their coffee beverage into exotic matter." Before Brightwing could process this information, a new transmission cut through all frequencies. A holographic figure materialized on both bridges, a human woman with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes, wearing what appeared to be a comfortable sweater rather than a military uniform. "This is Fleet Admiral Rebecca Hayes of the Earth Defense Force 3rd Fleet. I understand some pirates thought it would be a good idea to raid one of our colonies. I was in the middle of my granddaughter's ballet recital, so I'm afraid this response is going to be rather thorough." Her gentle smile somehow made her words even more terrifying. On the Black Nebula, several of the captured pirates began quietly weeping. Captain Bloodstar, still clutching his coffee cup, had gone completely pale. But you already have us captured," he stammered. "Why bring an entire fleet?" "Oh, this isn't just about you," Hayes replied, pulling out what appeared to be knitting needles and casually starting work on what might have been a sweater. "This is a teaching moment. You see, we've noticed a disturbing trend of various spacefaring species underestimating humanity because we still use certain traditional technologies. Admiral Brightwing's report about our radio signals was quite enlightening in that regard." Brightwing tried to sink lower in his chair as hundreds of human ships took up formation around the system. Each one hummed with enough power to level a continent, yet they moved with the precise grace of ballet dancers. "Now then," Hayes continued, her knitting needles clicking ominously, "let's discuss why we maintain our radio technology. Lieutenant Anderson, would you mind giving our guests a demonstration?" A younger human appeared next to Hayes, holding what looked like an ancient radio transmitter. "Of course, Admiral. You see, while we have naturally developed far more advanced communication methods, we keep the radio systems as a backup, because sometimes..." He turned a dial, and suddenly every piece of advanced technology in the system, except for human equipment, went dark. The Black Nebula's backup systems, the Starshine Guardian's quantum core, even Bloodstar's cybernetic eye all dead. Only the human ships continued operating, their coffee makers still bubbling away cheerfully. The old ways are the most reliable, Anderson finished with a grin. Hayes nodded approvingly, still knitting. We find that maintaining proficiency in multiple technology levels provides tactical advantages. For instance, while your ships rely entirely on your fancy quantum shields. She held up what was now recognizably a sweater featuring the Earth Defense Fleet logo. We prefer a layered approach. Radio waves, quantum fields, dark matter barriers, and good old-fashioned armor plating. Would anyone like to learn how to knit? It's very relaxing. The pirates, still trying to process how they'd gone from raiding a seemingly primitive colony to being offered handicraft lessons by one of the most powerful military forces they'd ever encountered, could only stare in bewilderment. Oh, and Captain Bloodstar Hayes added, "That coffee you're drinking? The caffeine content has been specially calibrated to keep you awake for the next 72 hours. You'll need it for the paperwork. We take our colony protection very seriously." Commander Martinez appeared again, now pushing what appeared to be an old-fashioned mail cart full of forms. Let's start with Form EDF 7249B, Acknowledgement of Poor Life Choices Leading to Current Predicament. Please sign in triplicate. No, we don't accept digital signatures. Yes, that's deliberate. As the human fleet arranged itself in an elaborate formation that somehow spelled out FAFO when viewed from above, Admiral Brightwing found himself re-evaluating every assumption he'd ever made about technological progress. "Lieutenant Pip," he said weakly, "please add another chapter to that manual we're writing. Call it Why Advanced Civilizations Might Choose to Keep Using Primitive Technology, and How That Should Terrify You." "Already on it," Sir Pip replied, watching as human engineers began casually disassembling the Black Nebula's quantum core while explaining basic thermodynamics to the captured crew. Though I think we might need several volumes at this point. A small human corvette drifted past the Starshine Guardian's view screen. Its name, painted in cheerful letters alongside cartoon coffee cups, read Proper Response Time. Brightwing couldn't help but feel it was aimed specifically at him. Sir Commander Zip reported, "The humans are offering to upgrade our communication systems. They say they can have it done in an hour, and they'll even throw in a coffee maker. Should I accept?" Brightwing looked at the fleet of impossibly advanced ships, each one capable of rewriting the laws of physics, commanded by a grandmother with knitting needles and powered by caffeinated beverages. "Yes, Commander. Accept everything they offer, and ask if they're giving lessons in radio maintenance. I have a feeling we're going to need them." The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Alliance had never been so crowded. Representatives from every major space-faring civilization packed the circular room, their attention focused on the human delegation seated calmly at the center. Admiral Brightwing, now infamous throughout the sector, sat in the witness box, trying not to look as uncomfortable as he felt. "Let me get this straight," Council Leader Nexus Brightstar said, their crystalline form shimming with confusion. "You ignored a distress signal because it was transmitted via radio waves." "In my defense," Brightwing began, then stopped as Admiral Hayes pulled out her knitting needles. The soft clicking sound somehow managed to echo menacingly through the chamber. "No, actually, I have no defense. I was an idiot." The human delegation, led by Ambassador Thomas Jackson, had set up what appeared to be a complete coffee bar in their section. The aroma of freshly brewed beverages wafted through the chamber, causing several council members to sniff curiously. "We have prepared a comprehensive presentation," Jackson announced, standing with a steaming mug in hand. "But first, would anyone like a cappuccino? Or perhaps a mocha latte? We find diplomatic discussions go much smoother with proper caffeination." Commander Martinez, now promoted to security chief, began distributing drinks with the same efficiency she had shown in capturing the Black Nebula. Several council members accepted the beverages cautiously, their expressions changing to surprise and delight at the first sip. Now then, Jackson continued, activating a holographic display. "Let's discuss the concept of technological diversity. Humans have a saying, never put all your eggs in one basket. In space terms, never rely solely on quantum communications when a good old-fashioned radio might save your life." The presentation that followed was both enlightening and mildly terrifying. The humans demonstrated how their seemingly primitive technology complemented their advanced systems, creating redundancies that made them nearly impossible to isolate or disable. And here Jackson pointed to a chart, is our current coffee consumption versus military efficiency rating. As you can see, there's a direct correlation. Council member Vic Starweaver raised a tentacle. But why maintain older technology when newer options are available? An excellent question, Jackson beamed. Admiral Hayes, would you mind demonstrating? Hayes pressed a button on what looked like an ancient remote control. Instantly, every piece of advanced technology in the chamber shut down except for the coffee machines, which continued brewing happily. Because sometimes Hayes said, still knitting what was now recognizably a tea cozy, the best solution is the simple solution. Now, who would like to learn about our paper filing system? The collective groan from the pirate representatives, still dealing with humanity's bureaucratic punishment system, spoke volumes. We have also prepared several thousand pages of documentation regarding proper response protocols for distress signals, Jackson added cheerfully, in triplicate naturally. And yes, we require physical signatures on every page. Brightwing watched as his fellow council members began to understand what he had learned the hard way. Humans were not just technologically advanced, they were administratively terrifying. In conclusion, Jackson said, refilling coffee cups with practiced ease, we propose a new emergency response protocol for the Galactic Alliance. All distress signals, regardless of their technological sophistication, will be treated with equal urgency. We call it the better safe than sorry protocol. Or, as we prefer, the don't be like Brightwing directive. Several council members chuckled, while Brightwing sank lower in his seat. Furthermore, Hayes added, holding up her completed tea cozy, which somehow incorporated both the Earth Defense Fleet logo and a warning about proper distress signal response times, we will be offering complimentary classes in radio maintenance, paper filing techniques, and basic coffee brewing to all member species. A small robot wheeled through the chamber, distributing what appeared to be ancient paper business cards. Sign up now, it chirped, and receive a free coffee maker with your first lesson. The council leader examined their coffee cup thoughtfully. I must admit, this beverage is quite remarkable. And you say it powers your ships. The ships, the weapons, the bureaucracy, Jackson nodded. We find that properly caffeinated personnel are 73% more efficient at filing paperwork, which, as you've seen, is a crucial part of our defensive strategy. Very well, the council leader declared. The human proposals are accepted. Admiral Brightwing, you will be the first to attend these training sessions, all of them, starting with Basic Coffee Appreciation 101. Brightwing looked at his own untouched coffee cup, then at the vast stack of papers requiring his signature, and finally at Hayes's knitting needles, still clicking away ominously. You know, he said, taking his first sip of coffee, I think I'm starting to understand why humans are so fond of this stuff. One standard Galactic month later, Admiral Brightwing stood at attention in the newly renovated Treaty Hall, watching as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for the signing of the Human-Galactic Cooperation Agreement. The hall had been modified to include both quantum terminals and manual typewriters, along with what was now mandatory at all official functions, a fully stocked coffee bar. Ambassador Jackson presided over the ceremony, wearing what appeared to be a hand-knitted diplomatic robe created by Admiral Hayes. The design incorporated coffee cups, radio waves, and tiny spaceships in an oddly elegant pattern. Before we sign, Jackson announced, holding up an impressively thick stack of papers, I would like to invite Admiral Brightwing to share his experiences from the mandatory training programs. Brightwing stepped forward, his feathers neatly preened and a coffee cup held confidently in his tentacle. I have learned many valuable lessons, he began, chief among them being that appearances can be deceiving, especially when dealing with humans. He paused to take a sip of his drink, a complex blend he had learned to appreciate during his barista certification course. For instance, did you know that humans deliberately maintain 17 different types of writing implements, including something called a number 2 pencil, just in case their quantum computers fail? They call it redundancy. I call it perfectly rational paranoia. The assembled diplomats chuckled, many of them also holding coffee cups of their own. Furthermore, Brightwing continued, I have personally filed exactly 2,947 forms relating to my initial failure to respond to their distress signal. Each one required a different color ink, and yes, they checked, with ultraviolet scanners, which they powered with coffee. Admiral Hayes, sitting in the front row and working on what appeared to be a sweater large enough to cover a small shuttle, nodded approvingly. But perhaps the most important lesson, Brightwing concluded, is that humans are not just technologically diverse, they are strategically unpredictable. They will respond to a crisis with either a planet-destroying fleet or a strongly worded memo, and somehow both are equally terrifying. The treaty signing proceeded with both digital and physical copies, the latter requiring signatures in triplicate with differently colored inks. Each page was stamped with a special seal that had been hand-carved by Admiral Hayes during particularly long military briefings. As the ceremony concluded, Captain Bloodstar, now serving as a cautionary tale instructor at the Galactic Patrol Academy, approached Brightwing with his own coffee cup in hand. You know what really gets me, the former pirate mused. They could have just destroyed us. Instead, they made us fill out Form 27B/6, detailed explanation of what you did wrong and why you feel bad about it twice, with footnotes. The humans have a saying, Brightwing replied sagely. The pen is mightier than the sword, though in their case they'll hit you with both, then make you document the experience in quadruplicate. Ambassador Jackson rang a small bell, drawing everyone's attention. And now, to celebrate this historic occasion, we've prepared a special treat: artisanal coffee beans grown in the gravity field of a neutron star. We find it adds a certain kick to the flavor. As the assembled dignitaries lined up to try this latest human innovation, Brightwing made a final entry in his personal log. Note to future patrol commanders, if you ever encounter a species that maintains primitive technology alongside advanced systems, that uses office supplies as psychological warfare, and that powers starships with caffeinated beverages, do not, under any circumstances, ignore their distress calls. They are not primitive. They are not simple. They are humans, and they will bury you in paperwork before you can say radio waves. He paused, then added one final line. P.S. The coffee is actually quite good once you develop a tolerance for exotic particle aftertaste.